Edmonton Oilers just hung a touchdown on the Minnesota Wild. We are going to break down a resounding victory over the team that was first place in the entire NHL coming into tonight's action on today's edition of Locked On Oilers.
You are Locked On Oilers, your daily podcast on the Edmonton Oilers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Friday, late Thursday night edition of Locked On Oilers. I am your host, Nick Zararis. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Oilers their first listen of the day. Locked On Oilers, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, where you can enjoy the NFL season with a big return. New customers can place a $5 bet and get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win your first $5 bet, visit FanDuel.com to get started. So on today's show, the offensive explosion, just an absolute treat to watch. The Oilers are finding ways to win against quality opposition. And then two big games over the weekend and on Monday. That was fun. You sign up for nights like that as a hockey fan. And look, the nail biter 2-1, 3-2 game that goes to overtime, the 1-0, the 2-1, the rock fights, the Big Ten West football, that is a unique feeling. In the playoffs, that's a good winning one of those nail biters. That'll put some hair on your chest. It'll harden your resolve as a human. It'll make you feel a lot tougher. It gives you a feeling that your team can do anything. But to come out the way you did tonight and absolutely blow the doors off of another team that is good. This isn't the Blackhawks. This isn't the Canadians. This isn't the Senators. The Wild were in first place in the Central. And I believe, I'm going to fact check this because I want to be accurate, but coming into tonight, I'm pretty sure the Wild were in first place in the entire NHL coming into tonight. Yes, Winnipeg lost in overtime, so they got a point, and they're ahead of Minnesota now. But Winnipeg won their game tonight, if I remember correctly. But as far as the Wild, the Oilers put a hurting on. Yeah, Winnipeg lost in overtime. That's why okay. Sorry. Want to be accurate. Got to give you good information. That's why you tune into Locked On Oilers, for the best information, the most actionable information, the most useful information. But you went out there and you absolutely smoked them. And this wasn't a case of the Oilers getting out to a big lead and then letting Minnesota hang around. No, this was from a Minnesota perspective. This is the type of game the Oilers had in October, where every single thing that could go wrong for you in this game, if you're the Wild, did go wrong for you. You gave up multiple power play goals against. You took a ton of penalties in this game. You got thoroughly outplayed at 5-on-5 while the game was still moderately close. And the way this game was a blowout, not only did the Oilers hang a 7 spot, typically when a team gets out to that big of a lead, 3, 4, 5 goals, the other team gets to make the underlying numbers for the overall game look respectable, because one team stops kind of trying to score. Most of the time when a team gets out to a 3 or a 4 goal lead, they're going to play very defensive. They're not really going to push for more offense. They're going to be a reasonably conservative offense because they don't need to create more. If you're up 3, you can turtle for an entire period, and most of the time you're going to be fine. Of course, occasionally teams find their way into trouble when they do that, but at the very same time, man, you got out to that big of a lead, and not only did you not let the Wild get back in the game, you arguably played better in the second period than you did in the first period. You outchanced them 13-5. You only outshot them by 2. You out high dangered them 2-1. You won the period in shots on goal. You scored a pair of special teams goals. I forgot the Connor Brown goal was shorthanded. I thought I don't know why I thought that was a power play goal in the back of my head, but you get that type of resounding effort throughout your lineup. You got Draisaitl, big multi-point night. You had McDavid have another really nice night. And it gets, I don't want to say academic, but you can just tell this team is in a real groove right now. And this has really been kind of my target point, if you will, for the Oilers through that early month, that first month and a half of the season, where the underlying numbers weren't awful, but the penalty kill and the power play weren't playing well. They weren't scoring enough. So it kind of felt like every game was unnecessarily tight and close. And now you're getting the best case scenario. The Oilers are playing really well offensively. You're getting power play goals. You killed off 17 of your last 18 penalties you'd taken coming into tonight. You conceded one, but to go that long on that good of a streak on your penalty kill, and yeah, some of that is just positive regression from how bad they were the first 10 games of the season. They conceded 11 power play goals on 29 chances in the first 10 games of the season. It's like 34%. And look, no team is that bad, but it's really nice to see the Oilers have kind of found their level, for lack of a better word. You beat Tampa Bay. It's a good win. You beat Minnesota, and resoundingly, and you make the Wild take a bunch of penalties because they're chasing it, and you kind of stomp their spirit out. It's a good feeling. A lot of games in the NHL, even between a good team and a bad team, they're squeakers. It's a 1-goal game, and you're chasing that empty net goal to kind of make the score look a little more respectable. But for the Oilers to play this well against this good of an opponent, you got to put yourself a pat on the back. If you're an Oilers fan listening to this right now, you got to feel really good going into the weekend. And look, I know you're 0-2 against Vegas, and Florida hasn't been amazing this year, but Florida's still probably the best team in the Eastern Conference. That's not till Monday. We'll talk before then, obviously, before the game on Monday. But you want all your ducks in a row, and you're never going to win every single game. The season's too long. Hell, NFL teams can't even go 17-0. No one's going 82. The Oilers are going to be somewhere between 50 and 54 wins, probably, if I had to guess, by the end of the season. And that's plenty. The end goal here is not regular season stuff. It's not a President's Trophy, not a division title, not one seed in the West. There is one goal here. It is to win the Stanley Cup and bring it back to Edmonton. That is the goal here. We have so much further to go in this journey, and the seeds of what could be are being planted right now. If you can continue to find ways to win against good quality opponents, you mud stomp them. You mud stomp a team like Minnesota. You whip them like a government mule, word to Jim Ross. If you can do that, you have to feel, if you're a guy on that team, if you're a fan of this team, you have to feel like you can play with anyone on any given night. You string together a clunker against Tampa Bay and you win a rock fight, tight defensive game. And the next time out, you hang a 7 spot on a team that's been one of the best in the entire NHL, has a Hart Trophy candidate player in Kirill Kaprizov, multiple people who are representing teams at the Four Nations face-off, and you run them off the ice to the point that the broadcast is asking, well, should they pull Gustafsson? Should they send Fleury out there for the third? That's the type of performance you can feel proud of and feel good about. And it's a long season. There's a long way to go. But if eventually something special does happen, you'll look at this game as that's when I kind of started to feel that this team might be special. We are going to take our first break of today's edition of Locked On Oilers. And when we come back, we're going to dive into what the Oilers did so well in this game that had Minnesota all out of sorts, coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks. Make your holidays bigger and brighter with PrizePicks, the best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports. You can win up to 1,000 times your money on PrizePicks. PrizePicks now offers MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. Join now because this holiday season, PrizePicks is giving away 2 free picks in December, and they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmas. For example, when you watch the Oilers take on the Vegas Golden Knights on Saturday, you could do whether Evan Bouchard is going to have more than 3.5 shots on goal, if Connor McDavid is going to have more than 1.5 assists, or if Leon Draisaitl is going to have more than half a goal. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. One more time, download the PrizePicks app or visit their website and use code LOCKEDONNHL so they know we sent you to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. And this weekend in the NFL, there are 2 pretty good games. The Battle of Pennsylvania, the Keystone State, Steelers, Russell Wilson heading to Philly to take on the Eagles, where the Eagles are 5.5-point home field favorites. And then, same time slot, unfortunately, game of the year potential, MVP frontrunner Josh Allen and the Bills heading to Detroit to take on the Super Bowl favorite Detroit Lions, where the Lions are 2.5-point favorites. I cannot wait to watch that game this weekend. You can get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you to everyone who is hanging out here on this Friday, Thursday night, whatever time you're watching this edition of Locked On Oilers, where the Oilers got to their game so fast. Whenever the Oilers score first, they are a fundamentally different hockey team. The opportunities the Oilers are able to create when they are able to exist off the counterattack and off of the rush versus off of the cycle are night and day. And when the Oilers are able to create offense at the volume, and I'm not talking about just in terms of goals, even though they did score 7 tonight, but when you can hold the other team to 25-ish shots on goal per game, and you're in that vicinity or more, and you thoroughly win the scoring chances and the high danger chances, especially the scoring chances. You know, when we talk about shots on goal versus scoring chances include shots that miss the net or get blocked on the way in. But that tells you that that team has possession. You know, if you look at the split for the game where it's 52-41 in scoring chances, but it's 25-16 in shots for, and again, it's at 5-on-5. When you have that aggressive of a split where, yeah, you got 20 some odd shots of yours blocked, but the other team only had 25 scoring chances, and they only got they only got 16 through at 5-on-5. That tells me you had the puck in their own zone significantly more of the game. And when you have the puck in the other team's offensive zone for prolonged, extended periods of time, number one, you are not actively playing defense. If you are not playing defense, you cannot be scored upon. If you are in the offensive zone, there is no better place to be as a defenseman than in your offensive zone with possession of the puck, because that means you don't have to defend. You don't have to defend. You can't concede a goal against. If you don't concede a goal against, you can't lose. So you build off of that. And then if you have sustained offensive zone time, you can cycle, you can pressure, and that's how you draw penalties. You know, the Oilers drew 4 penalties tonight. This is the most they've had in a game in their last 2 games. If you add up their last 2 games, the last 2 wins, and you would end up with 3. They had 1 more tonight than they had in the previous 2 games combined. And that's a sign that they are playing offense, that they are making the other team actively play defense, because that's where they're going to take their penalties. And when you force the other team to play defense, to take penalties, you start to wear them down. And look, I'll be fair. this is, this is a Murphy's Law game. If you're the Wild, everything that could go wrong for you in this game happened. And we do have to see what the deal is with Evan Bouchard, who left the game late with a big lead. Ryan Hartman blew him up relatively late in the game, like 4 minutes to go. We'll see how Bouch is doing, and then maybe we have a different outlook about this game. But when you get the Oilers out to a lead, that's where they thrive. I want to make sure I get this right, so I'm going back over to my notes tab. They were 9-2-2. They were 8-2-2 coming into tonight when scoring first. They won tonight, so they became 9-2-2. In games where the other team scores first, the Oilers are 7-8-0. That type of split is not wholly reflective of just the Oilers. That is a league-wide, frankly, that is a sport-wide trend where we see the team that gets out to a lead have more opportunities to win games because what it does to the team that's trailing. Because when you are a trailing team, you need to be more aggressive offensively, which makes you more susceptible to counterattacks, and it makes you weaker defensively because you are desperate for offense. And when I say defensively, that doesn't just mean defensemen. That includes forwards in the defensive zone, because if you're chasing the game, if you're Minnesota, those forwards are going to start creeping and creeping closer and closer to the blue line in the defensive zone in hopes of being sprung for a long pass to get a rush opportunity, because those are more dangerous. When you can create off of the rush, you can typically create odd man situations, or at the very least, you can create a cross seam opportunity, which is going to get the goalie moving left to right, which is the most dangerous chance we have in the NHL, is that cross seam pass left to right, right to left through the slot. If you can go from circle to circle and get that puck onto the strong side of an attacking player, that is a really quality opportunity. But because you're chasing that, it's so much harder to create. The other team knows you need offense. So they're going to start creeping up a little bit further and a little bit further in your own zone. They're going to jump those long passes. In an ideal world, you want that first pass as crisp and short as possible so that the defending team that is trying to forecheck you, to hem you in your own zone, doesn't have time to pressure you. If they pressure you, that is where you are more inclined to make a mistake. That's why typically you see teams that struggle in transition get hemmed in their own zone for extended periods of time. You think about the Oilers, that first month or so of the season, that first 10 to 15 games, where it felt like every single night they were spending the entire penalty kill in their own zone because they couldn't clear the zone. And look, penalty kill is different from 5-on-5 breakouts. I get that, but they are inherently connected when the players who struggle at transition play are bad in both situations. But you got a great defensive performance tonight. You made Calvin Pickard's life really easy. He didn't have to do a whole lot. And if you can play like this in front of your backup goalie, you are going to have a really nice record at the end of the season. I went on a Gametime Edmonton with Avery, and we were talking about it from the perspective of, can you find a way to get Pickard to 20 wins this year? Look, I know he's only at like 6 or 7 after tonight, and he's probably going to start in the ballpark of 30 some odd games without injury to Stuart Skinner, which you definitely don't want because the Oilers don't have an obvious third goalie. But if you can get your backup goalie to 15 wins, 20 wins, you have a really good backup goalie. And if you have that luxury, that tells me you have a really good team, because your team plays well enough in front of your backup goalie that he doesn't need to be the difference between winning and losing. Because if your backup was capable of being the difference between winning and losing, he wouldn't be a backup. He would be a starter. There aren't 32 good starters in the NHL, let alone 32 good backups. There's maybe in the whole league 30 something goalies, 31, maybe 30 goalies you feel reasonably good about in the role they're in, maybe even less than that. It might be in the ballpark of 20. That might be something I investigate over the weekend and put a little something together on for next week on one of the days the Oilers don't play, because that's an interesting idea for a case study. We're going to take one last break ahead of our final segment of the show. We're going to talk about the Saturday game against the Golden Knights coming up after this. We are all driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree. Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. The thing I like the most about Indeed is that it is constantly improving. It leverages over 140 million qualifications and preferences, so it's learning. The more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs. More visibility at indeed.com/locked on. Just go to indeed.com/locked on right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/locked on. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Thank you to everyone who is hanging out here on this Friday end of week. Thank goodness it's the weekend edition of Locked On Oilers, because let me tell you, folks, it has been quite the week. When football season and hockey season overlap, my work schedule is very, very chaotic, but I'm very glad I'm doing this episode. Most importantly, I'm very glad the Oilers won. It's really rough when you got to stay up late after getting up early, after doing work all day and working out and running. And it's really nice when the Oilers are able to respect me in my bedtime. And look, I don't mind staying up if they win. If I have to do one of these post-game episodes after they lose, I just feel miserable. I feel bad. I try when the Oilers lose to give you a diagnosis as to why they lost, what's correctable, what isn't, and then you can build off of that. It gives you, a checklist, an itinerary going into the next game as far as things to think about. But when you go out there and you kick serious butt the way you did tonight, you gotta feel accomplished. I said it in the first segment. I'll say it again. Give yourself a pat on the back for being here. And it is such a long way to go. It is such a long way to go, man. When you think about how much work still has to be done, we are still 3 months and 2 weeks away from the NHL trade deadline. It's December 13th. We've got 2.5, 3 weeks till the new year, all of January, all of February, and then 5 days in March. The NHL trade deadline is March 5th. The Oilers have a lot they need to solve between now and then. Do they want another defenseman? Is Evander Kane coming back into the mix? If Evander Kane comes back, what does that do for the rest of our lineup? If we bring him back in, what does that do for a cap situation? Can we be cap compliant if we activate Evander Kane and he's one of our 12 forwards? I really am curious. It's not something I have a definitive answer on right now. We have to see what his timeline is for recovery and then game readiness, because those are two very different things. We talked about it a few weeks ago on the show, the idea that depending on when he's ready, there will be corresponding roster moves. They're going to have to move some stuff around because I don't believe they have the cap space to activate him right now. Were he healthy, even though he's months away from being close, there's a good chance middle February, I would guess at this point, as far as a ramping up process to see what he'd feel like and how close he is to returning to play. But Saturday night, hockey night in Canada-ish, because I believe it's an earlier puck drop than usual for whatever reason. It's probably for TV reasons, because there's probably football on or something. Yeah. Tomorrow, 4 p.m., so a 1 o'clock start in Edmonton. I, for one, would like to see the Oilers get a lick back. And we talked about that idea a few times this year. We talked about it in regards to the St. Louis Blues revenge game last Saturday for them offer sheeting your players, getting your lick back. We talked about it going into tonight's game as far as beating Minnesota, because last time you played, they beat you up. You've played Vegas twice. You've lost them twice. You are playing really good hockey right now. There is every last bit of opportunity before you, and you're not always going to need that little bit of extra energy, that little bit of extra momentum internally to kind of psych yourself up. But these guys have beaten you twice already. And if you're one of the guys on this team who takes some ownership of that, who feels like, well, these guys aren't better than us. Yeah, they beat us, but we can beat them. Go do it. It's that simple. That's the great thing about sports. To the word to the great Herm Edwards, you play to win the game. You can talk all the talk, and eventually you got to go out there and you got to play. And this Oilers team is on a really nice run of form over the last few weeks. When you string together a, a 7-2-0 through your last 9, that's something people take note of. That's okay, this team has figured out whatever was wrong with it earlier in the season. And there will be hiccups along the way. We got a long way to go till the postseason, and there will be injuries. There will be adversity. But the simple matter of the fact is, this team, after starting 4-5-1, giving up a power play goal every single game, has got it back on the tracks. They are controlling games against quality opponents. They are rattling opponents' cages to the point that they are taking terrible defensive zone penalties, that they have to pull their goalie, or it's at least worthy of consideration to pull the goalie. There's a lot that goes into the journey of a long season, but when you have opportunities to give yourself a little bit of extra juice, a little bit of extra motivation, how can you not take advantage of that? How can you not be looking down the barrel of, well, you know what? Jack Eichel and his friends already beat us twice. Can we go out there and get our lick back and make us not look like suckers? That's the goal here. Go out there, beat that team. You're on a nice winning streak. You are playing really, really good hockey. You beat another team that's quality. It wouldn't be out of the question for the Oilers to see the Golden Knights in the conference finals, the second round, in the postseason. This is a division game, so it's a 4-point swing. You have an opportunity to make up some ground. That's something that would be nice for the Oilers, who are currently sitting in the third spot in the Pacific Division. Yeah, okay, the standings updated because it's 17-10-2. They're 5 points back of Vegas. You win tomorrow, you're 3 points back of Vegas, and they can't make up ground because you beat them head to head. These 4-point swing games, you still got to play Vegas one more time after this, play Vancouver a couple more times. You still got a couple more battles of Alberta. You get to play the Ducks 4 times. You get to play the Sharks 4 times. Take advantage of your division swings. Use the stupid playoff format to your advantage. Yes, this format is dumb. I don't like this format. I've been on the record that I don't like this divisional priority format because it doesn't reward the best team. The best team often gets a harder opponent than they would if we were doing the old 1-8 format. But that will do it for today's Friday edition of Locked On Oilers. If you could be so kind, please subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, throw the show a 5-star review. If you're watching over on YouTube, we're creeping up towards 1,800 subscribers. The goal is 2,000 by the end of the regular season. So that way, by the time the playoffs come, I can set something ridiculous like 2,700, 3,000 by the end of the Stanley Cup, where I'll be at the parade on a float, because that's the end goal here, is to win a cup. Because, God, I want to win one of those things really, really, really bad. Get on now. Let's make it happen together. This is a fun journey ahead. I will talk to you guys on Monday, ahead of the Stanley Cup final rematch against the Florida Panthers. I might squeeze in a bonus episode just for the sickos over the weekend after the game against Vegas. We'll see. I will talk to you guys soon. We're going to have a fun and safe weekend. Let's go Oilers.